So folks should realize, like, I come from a tradition where I didn't grow up Christian. I did go to Catholic schools. They are not known for being emotive most of the time in mass. There are charismatic Catholics, but that was not the strain that I was part of. Then when I became Christian, it was through the ministry of a white evangelical youth group. And then I started going to the church that sponsored the youth group, which was a white evangelical church, which was not known for too much expression. You might get some hands raised on a particularly, animated Sunday, but that would be about it. And then it gets even more staid after that because I get into these Reformed Christian circles and these Presbyterian circles. And the joke about Presbyterians is the frozen chosen, the chosen's part speaking to their beliefs about God's sovereignty and election and all of that. The frozen part meaning they stiff, they don't clap, they don't sway, they don't raise
At all.
hands
At
at
all.
all. And that stereotype's not too far off the truth, especially when you get into some of the older, more established churches. There's a very established liturgy, things that you do and don't do, and nobody really even said it. It's the culture of the church, as it is in more expressive places. You sort of come in, and even as somebody brand new to the congregation, you look around you, particularly during musical worship, and you get the cues. Are people shouting? Are they raising their hands? Are they moving? Are they dancing? Are they being slain in the spirit, et cetera, et cetera? Are they standing there looking at the hymnal very stiff, which doesn't necessarily mean it's not worshipful or emotional. It's a different cultural expression. Now, it can mean that, but
Right.
it doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean that. So we're not like putting these things on a hierarchy per
Right.
se,
Right.
but I do think it's important to articulate for folks like me who may not come out of these traditions where expressiveness, physical expressiveness, vocal expressiveness in worship is fairly common. So can you explain, what some of the ethos or even the theology is behind having this be a part of worship and it's an accepted and even celebrated thing?
Yeah, so I think it's tripart, I would say. I think first of all, expressiveness in worship is cultural, right? So it is cultural. I don't say cultural as the foundation, but there are things, especially in the Black Christian expression, specifically, I would say, in our modern churches, as the Baptist fit or the Pentecostal shout moment
Mm,
or the praise break. Like those things are natural, emotive, cultural staples. Now, these things have roots in our Africanness, our diasporic identity. They have roots in the way that Southern churches praised
hmm
God with rhythm, with cadence, but they also had root in our personal experiences with bondage. So we could not be fully free. And because we
mm,
could not be fully free, we had to express ourselves in worship. It also is theological, where it comes from specific psalms that tell us to make a joyful noise unto the Lord, to
yeah.
bless the Lord, to dance, to shout. But it is also psychological as well. And this
Mm,
is kind of the third thing that gets into what I think probably seems to be happening in this clip. And that is that there is a psychological release of
mm,
pain, of grief, of gratitude, of frustration, of thankfulness and thanksgiving. There is a psychological expression because often what is forced upon Black people through weathering and through microaggressions and through the cares of life is an internalization of the pain and the emotions that we feel. And church has historically been the safe place for us to, as one writer has famously said, a safe place for us to never quit praising God.
mm,
So they like to never quit praising God. Why? Because we didn't have a space to fully express ourselves. Any sort of expression in culture could have gotten us hurt, harmed, maimed, killed, or silenced. And so the Black church has always had, through its cultural, theological, and also psychological foundation and base, an expressive identity. When I recently spoke about expression at a conference, expressive theology, I said expressive theology has two wings on the expressive theology plane. There's two wings. It's the audacity, it's the capacity to mourn and the audacity to shout.
Mm, the capacity to
The
mourn and
capacity
the
to mourn
audacity to shout.
and the audacity to shout.
I like that.
That's if I had to summarize what expressive theology is and what Black Christian expression looks like, it is the capacity to mourn, to bemoan, to lament, to cry, to weep, to wail, to travail, but also the audacity to shout and to praise and to dance and to sing and to move your bodies and to together enter into that expressive moment as one body. That's kind of how I would explain
That's
what it means.
brilliant. No, that is super helpful. And I like how you said the psychological part. I've experienced that. It is cathartic. Whether it's joy, whether it's sorrow, whether it's lament, whether it's just becoming overcome by the awesomeness of God, to fully express yourself through tears, through shouts, through hand raise and physical motion, you actually sort of exit that experience, at the end of the service or whatever. You feel this sort of healthy, like draining, like it's out of you, and it's found a place to go in worship that is holy and right, and you've channeled it in a positive way in that sense. And so I can definitely relate to experiences like that. I also think that theology speaks to a broader interpretation that Black Christians have of the faith, which is holistic and integrative and not
Yes.
siloed and separated.